I'm doing these all on the same sort of train, if you haven't noticed. I have just want to be in the same sort of train of thought scheme that I would be when I started these. And the last thing I finished on was this idea of rules. And I said it would be a different set of rules than what the community set up. And I do mean that. Now, let's take a look at two different games here. Again, for this, I think a good game to look at. What's a good game? Atlantica. I'll put a link to it in the description. There's a lot fewer people who know what Atlantica is than, you know what? Let's go with MapleStory. In my youth, there was a big game. I'm not sure if it still is, but probably when I was around 15. That's a long time ago. But any game that's created by Nexon has a set of rules. Don't be abusive, don't swear, don't do this, don't do that, and don't hack, don't do all these things that could mess up our game, make everybody, I guess, not want to play. And that's fine. Does it work? Not exactly. I mean, you report a person and they are eventually dealt with in a somewhat not completely timely manner. Is this a good model? Not exactly. Now, League of Legends has something a little bit different. They don't have hard, set in stone rules. That's why they set up the tribunal. They do, however, have something called a summoner code. And that is basically a user code. There is no particular hard set rules. It's how the community would interpret something, which is what's really, really important about this. So the largest driving factor in any community is the community itself. So why League of Legends is able to keep this community sort of down and keep these players out of the play space is because the community has decided on a preset determining rule of what is acceptable and what isn't. This varies from person to person, but after a little while, a norm is achieved. What is acceptable, what isn't, and all that. The summoner code is just sort of a guideline in order to what the community is supposed to come to, but it doesn't have hard set rules. There's nothing that says you will not swear, you will not swear, you will not hack. And I mean, hacking is definitely a problem that has to be fixed, but the community is allowed to decide that hacking is not acceptable. So it all sort of meshes together because the community accepts that. And the community decides that. With MapleStory, it doesn't mesh together. You have the developers over here and the community over here trying to abide by the rules that the developer did until you find somebody that doesn't. And then that one person that doesn't over here is now only against the developers, and the community is against them, but the developers have to make the decision. And eventually the developers have to get to it. That is the important difference between community rules and rules themselves. Now, one of the things we also have to look at is how this sort of grows. Now, Riot of League of Legends has a little bit of a different sort of, uses a word which I like, but I'm gonna use a different one. They call it toxic. Now, toxic is a good word because it takes, for example, a toxic player. Toxic player sort of radiates out, causes a negative experience for everybody else. Think sort of like, I guess, Inside the Sea, somebody throws in some terrible I guess toxic ooze in this case, because I can't think of anything. Radioactive waste. And poisons everything else inside the community. Good word, not what I'm going to use. The reason I'm not going to use that is because toxic is sort of isolated. Let's say isolated. I like isolated. It's isolated to this one person or this one game. This isn't an isolated incident. I like to think of it as a virus. Yeah. Because you have this one toxic player. He's toxic to everybody inside the community, and then this usually breeds other toxic players. And that's something I have to deal with. So if this radiates out like a virus needs a host. That original host is one person, and then the more people that they interact with, it gets more and more hosts. There's more and more terrible players because they're just mimicking what they saw these other players do. And even though you probably don't notice this happening, it does happen quite radically. Okay, once again, I'm running long, and I actually want to analyze the next section I'm sort of going to go into before I actually go any farther into this, and look at the responses I'm getting, because this is sort of a topic which is controversial. So until next time, which I'll actually probably be playing games because I will probably be getting another mic pretty soon, or uninstall Skype. Assholes. And that's it.